This happened last fall, just after my roommate moved out. I live in upstate New York, in one of those old colonial-style houses that's been turned into a duplex. Rent's cheap, the neighborhood's quiet, and the woods behind the backyard give it this peaceful, secluded vibe that I used to love. The top floor was always meant to be mine, while my roommate had the downstairs. After he left, I decided I'd clean up and convert the lower floor into a workspace. But there was one room down there that we'd never really used. The small one at the back of the house. It had always been locked. My roommate once told me the landlord had warned him not to go in there. He said it was just used for old storage and hadn't been opened in years. I didn't think much of it at the time. Honestly, I was just glad someone else was paying half the rent. But now that I was living alone, it started to bother me. A locked room in your own house? It's hard to explain, but it started gnawing at me. Like, what could possibly be in there that needed to be sealed up? I called my landlord, we'll call him Gary, and asked if I could open it. At first he was weirdly dismissive, said it was best left closed, and that some parts of old houses just get left behind, whatever that meant. Eventually, though, he gave in. He said he'd drop off the key later that week, but he never did. And after 2 more follow-up calls where he straight up ignored me, I decided screw it. I'd open it myself. I figured I'd just pop the lock and put it back later. So one Friday night, after work, I grabbed a flathead screwdriver and tried to jimmy it open. To my surprise, the lock gave way easier than I thought. The second the door creaked open, I felt this weird chill. Not cold, exactly, just wrong. Inside, the room was empty. No furniture, no boxes, no paint on the walls, just dusty wood floors, cracked plaster, and a single bulb dangling from the ceiling. But the weirdest part was how the air smelled, like something sweet had rotted a long time ago. Not fresh decay, something old, settled. I stepped inside and turned on the light, and I swear to you, for a split second, I thought I saw someone standing in the corner. But when I blinked, the corner was empty. You know how your brain fills in shadows sometimes? Like it creates a figure where there isn't one? That's what I told myself. But something about that space felt heavy. Like the room didn't want me there. I didn't stay long. I backed out slowly, closed the door, and left it unlocked, but shut. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that moment, that flicker of a shape in the corner. I live alone now, remember? So every tiny creak in the house hit different. Around 2 a.m., I finally dozed off, only to wake up at 3:17 exactly, to a soft tapping sound. Not the house settling, not wind. It was a deliberate rhythm. Tap, tap, pause, tap. It was coming from downstairs. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, listening. The tapping stopped. Then, a second later, I heard something far worse, creaking floorboards, as if someone was walking, slowly, up the steps. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. There was no weapon nearby, so I grabbed the heaviest thing I could find, a metal water bottle, and moved toward the door. The creaking stopped. For a long minute, nothing happened. Then, as suddenly as it had started, the house went dead quiet. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I just sat in bed, eyes fixed on the dark hallway outside my door, heart racing like it was trying to punch through my chest. The next morning, everything seemed fine. Nothing was moved. Doors were still locked. I even checked the basement and the attic. Nothing. I convinced myself it was my imagination. Stress, sleep deprivation, whatever. I told myself I'd overreacted. And then, that night, the smell came back. That sickly sweet rot I had only smelled in the locked room. Except this time, It wasn't coming from downstairs. It was in the hallway, right outside my bedroom. I opened the door slowly, flashlight shaking in my hand. The hallway was empty, but I followed the scent, down the stairs, around the corner, until I reached that door. The one I'd opened. It was shut, and the lock was back in place. That's the part I still can't explain. I broke that lock. I remember exactly how it felt giving way in my hand. But now it was whole, sealed, like I had never touched it. The next day, I left the house and stayed with a friend for the weekend. I didn't tell them why. I just said my heater was acting up or something. And when I came back Sunday night, that door was wide open again. The light bulb inside was on, and scratched into the wood floor, deep, jagged, and unmistakably deliberate, was a single word: stay. I moved out a week later. Gary never responded to my calls. I left the key in the mailbox and never went back. But sometimes when I can't sleep, I still hear that tap, tap, pause, tap in the back of my mind. This happened in the winter of 2019, when I took a solo trip up to Maine to clear my head. I'd just gone through a brutal breakup and wanted to disconnect. My boss let me take 2 weeks off work, and I booked an Airbnb cabin about 30 minutes outside Bar Harbor, a small place surrounded by woods with no neighbors in sight. It sounded perfect, peaceful, quiet, and it was at first. The cabin itself was tiny but cozy. 1 bedroom, a kitchenette, wood stove, and a wraparound porch. I brought books, coffee, and downloaded a ton of podcasts. There was no service, but the Wi-Fi worked, so I felt safe enough. Plus, the owner lived only a mile away, according to the listing. The first 2 nights were uneventful. I mostly slept, made soup, went on little walks, and journaled. On the 3rd night, though, something changed. It was around midnight when I woke up needing water. I got out of bed, stepped into the little hallway that connected the bedroom to the kitchen, and immediately stopped. There was someone standing at the end of the hallway. I didn't move. The figure didn't either. It was just standing there, perfectly still. Too dark to make out details, but the outline was unmistakably human. Male, broad-shouldered, maybe 6 feet tall. For a full 10 seconds, we didn't move. Then I reached over, turned on the hallway light, and he was gone. Just vanished. I checked the whole cabin. Nothing. Front door locked. No broken windows. I was shaken, but I told myself it had to be a dream or some kind of half-awake hallucination. I went back to bed, left the lights on. The next day, I went into town and bought a cheap security camera from a hardware store. One of those motion-activated ones with an app. I installed it in the hallway and set it to send alerts. That night, nothing happened. I slept like a rock. But on the 5th night, I got a notification at 2:48 a.m. Motion detected. Hallway. My heart dropped. I opened the app, expecting to see a raccoon or maybe just me tossing in my sleep. But what I saw was him. The man. Standing at the end of the hallway. Exactly like before. Only this time, he turned. He looked directly at the camera and smiled. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I stayed up with a knife in my hand and called the host first thing in the morning. I didn't care how paranoid I sounded. She was confused, said no one else had access to the property, said she'd never had any issues. I packed up and left that day. Later, when I reviewed the camera footage again, I noticed something horrifying. That motion clip, the one with the man in the hall? It started 3 seconds after I left the bedroom to go to the bathroom, which means he was already there, watching me walk past. Back in 2021, I went to a friend's wedding in Tennessee. Beautiful venue, deep in the mountains, with guest cabins all around the main lodge. The wedding lasted all weekend, and most guests were staying on the property. I arrived Friday evening and was given a key to cabin number 3. My name was taped to the envelope. After a long day of driving, I dropped my bags off, freshened up, and headed to the welcome dinner. Later that night, around 11:30, I walked back to the cabin, tired, a little tipsy from wine, and went to bed. At about 2 a.m., I woke up to a loud banging. It wasn't the front door. It was the wall behind the bed. 3 knocks, then silence, then again. Bang! 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 I froze, waited, tried to listen through the silence. A few seconds passed, then a new sound, a slow dragging noise, like furniture being moved. It was coming from the other side of the wall. Now here's the thing. This cabin was standalone. No shared walls, which meant the sound wasn't coming from a neighbor's room. I got out of bed, heart racing, and walked to the front door. It was locked. I looked through the side window and noticed something strange. The curtains inside the cabin across from mine were moving, swaying, like someone had just passed by them. That's when I realized something awful. I wasn't staying in cabin number 3. The next morning, I found the real cabin number 3 2 doors down. Mine was cabin number 5. The number had fallen off the door completely. Someone else was supposed to be in that cabin, but it was empty. No one was assigned to it. The property manager swore up and down that cabin number 5 wasn't in use, that the door should have been locked, that no one should have been inside. So whoever knocked wasn't trying to come in. They were already there.